Who needs energy drinks when you've got Fox News Radio 1460 AM and 101.1 FM?
And I simply said that I felt that the actual encounter was an accident by George getting out of his vehicle and having some type of confrontation with Trayvon, that was the accident.
Now, that's from NBC's Today Show yesterday, and that is Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, and she's saying that she did not mean that the shooting of her son was accidental, but the meeting of Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman was, in her opinion, accidental. We're talking with Dennis Fuller. He's an attorney, and we're discussing this case and what's going to come now that Mr. George Zimmerman is going to be arraigned on these charges, second-degree murder. They're saying that one of the interesting things here is that the prosecutors are alleging that he profiled Trayvon Martin and hunted him down or stalked him. Dennis, that type of a charge is really inflammatory. I was surprised to see that, and by what evidence do they have? Well, I guess they have to produce it, but they believe they can produce evidence that would say that something as subjective as profiling someone they can prove.
If they get to define what profiling is, we all have generally an understanding of what profiling is, but if they get to define what profiling is for them, in this case it's someone that's wandering around in the rain that doesn't look like they have some place to go, then that's if they get to define the terms, then they can make their case.
Right. One of the other things that we've talked about with this is that the stand your ground law has become an issue in this case. Now, with calls that nationally the Congress should try and do something about it, that these stand ground laws are racist in their very nature. That's what some of the very hard voices on the left have said, and they want to try and get them overturned. You don't believe that stand your ground in this case is an issue?
I really don't. This is it. I wasn't there. I'm going to start off with that. I wasn't there. I don't know what the evidence is going to be, but based on what we've heard, this is a plain and simple self-defense case, or it's not. One way or the other, it turns on self-defense. It turns on the reasonableness of Mr. Zimmerman's belief that he had to use deadly force to keep from receiving serious injuries to himself. And, that's the same in every state. Yes, there's a little inflammatory clause in the Florida statute that talks about standing your ground. But from what we've heard, if Mr. Zimmerman were on his back, I want to ask you the question, where is there to retreat from the ground?
Right. And you really, here's the other thing as well, is one of the only ways you can, if you're on your back to get yourself up, is either you pull yourself forward or you roll over. If you roll over, you are now taking your eyes off the person that you've been fighting with, and you don't know, you're at a disadvantage. So you don't know what they're going to do to you then. So, yeah, he may well have felt that his life was in danger when he fired that gun.
So basically it's self-defense, and that self-defense is started in common law in England, and it's in every state, and this has nothing to do, in my opinion, as an ex-prosecutor, with stand your ground. It's going to turn on the self-defense and the reasonableness of his belief and his response under the circumstances.
All right. Dennis, I've got a caller who wants to ask a question. This is Tom in Oak Hills. Tom, you're on with Dennis Fuller. Go ahead.
Hey, Dennis, to me, I was rather surprised of this arrest and indictment of Mr. Zimmerman, just because I thought all the facts pretty much have already been, revealed and discussed. So I can only assume that the prosecutor must have other facts that really do show that, there was responsibility on Mr. Zimmerman's part outside of his claim for self-defense. What's your take on that?
Well, undoubtedly, Mr. Zimmerman is responsible for what happened. The question is more, was he justified in his response? That's the legal
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Do you think it's possible that she has other facts of evidence that will preclude him from using that defense?
Is it possible? Yes.
Okay.
It is always possible. Do I think it is probable? No. What I
Hey,
believe...
Dennis, can I ask you to hold? Can you stay for another few minutes?
Yeah.
I have a break here I have to hit at the bottom of the hour. Dennis Fuller is with us. We're going to continue with him in just a moment.
Fox News Radio is on a need-to-know basis. When you need to know, tune to 1460 AM and 101.1 FM.
7:35, and we're still visiting with Dennis Fuller. He's now a criminal defense attorney, but had been a prosecutor. So what a great perspective to have a guy who's been on both sides of the fence in the courtroom, and he's joining us to discuss the Zimmerman-Martin case. Dennis, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, off the air, I had a really fascinating conversation with Tom, and a number of things came up. And I think that you'd mentioned something to me yesterday, and I wanted to talk about this for a moment, and that is we do have a witness. There is a witness who said that he saw Trayvon Martin on top of George Zimmerman, and this is a witness, quite frankly, that not the prosecution, but the defense really needs to protect. Because
I have thought the exact same thing, and if there's anything that sends cold chills through me about this case, it is the safety of that witness, because that witness is the key, and if he disappears, if he's gone, then the shape of this case changes completely.
Did you ever lose a witness?
Yes, absolutely. Had witnesses disappear.
Wow. Okay, so it does happen. It's not like the stuff of mafia stories and movies and so forth. It does happen in real life.
It is not just the story of the mafia. Witnesses really do disappear. Sometimes they're not dead. Sometimes somebody just pays for that witness to be unavailable for an extended period of time. I had one that disappeared to Guatemala and never showed up again at any point in time relevant.
And that was the case.
And he was a big part of the case.
Wow.
Yep.
With this particular case, and we were talking about this off the air, that what the court of public opinion wants, at least a lot of it, wants a conviction, and they want George Zimmerman in jail. And I'm fearful that the prosecution, the reason they brought the charges they brought with the type of charges they brought is that they want to get some sort of conviction to assuage these people. But let's say that they're not able to. Let's say that we end up, and the jury that's seated ends up acquitting George Zimmerman. Then what happens? Do we end up with the rioting and so forth that was being encouraged by some of the bad actors in this case? Or that's the great unknown at this point.
I agree with you 100%. I don't hear a real call for justice. What I hear is a call for a conviction and jail time.
I hear a call for revenge.
Exactly. And if we were hearing a call for justice, quote unquote, at this point in time, justice is just a matter of your perspective on the case. The court is going to be empowered to do justice. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will under the political pressure. But I am hopeful that our justice system does do justice, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course the arraignment is going to be May 29th. So that's the end of next month. There's going to be a lot of information between now and then. You had mentioned something else is that the more that they interview, particularly Mr. Zimmerman, in trying to keep his story straight, what happened, you can get to a point where a prosecutor, as you know from being one, you can indict a ham sandwich. And the more someone talks, the worse off it is for them.
I'll tell you, that's one reason his lawyers withdrew the other day, is because the first thing you tell a client is, I'm the only one that you talk to, and if we talk to someone else, I decide who it is we talk to, and we're only going to do it once. And the truth is that if a client talks to the prosecutor twice, or talks to two folks with a recorded statement twice, you can always manufacture a conflict between the words he chose to describe something in one session versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
Either that, or he's reading from a script, in which case he gets slammed for reading from a script if he chooses the same word. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
And a perfect example of a lawyer letting his client talk too much is this case up in Pennsylvania with Jerry Sandusky.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, every time Jerry Sandusky opens his mouth, he convicts himself.
That's the worst client to have, I can tell you. And that's why the lawyers withdrew on Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind, and particularly the crime that Sandusky's accused of, that's the very worst client to have. Of all types of clients you could have, someone who's accused of sex crimes against kids. I don't know how you defend somebody like that.
It's difficult to start with.
Yeah. 7:40. Let's take one last call here. We have Dennis on the line. Dennis, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I'm just reading an article on the Drudge Report where Alan Dershowitz thinks that the arrest affidavit is very, very weak and won't get past the judge even.
Well, that's one of the exact reasons that I think the prosecutor didn't take this case to a grand jury, too. They want the bully pulpit. They want the stage for political reasons, I believe, that we're being played on that, and we're being divided, that this is really a focus on driving a wedge through the middle of the fabric of American society. And so they're going to do everything they can to keep from getting thrown out, whether it's by the judge on an affidavit or taking it to a grand jury. And they're going to have a challenge with that, I think. But I think they'll be able to make it hang around for a while.
Dennis, last question for you. Over the last couple of weeks, we have had individuals and groups out there that have been advocating violence and even, get George Zimmerman dead or alive, like the new Black Panthers. I mean, there's even audio of a telephone call conference that Sean Hannity got hold of and played on his program, where these people are openly advocating bloodshed in this case. And what really surprised me, now I'm not surprised that the Attorney General of the United States didn't do anything about that, okay? But the fact that the AG in Florida, that the local prosecutors, that the sheriff in Seminole County, that no one ever issued a public statement saying vigilante justice, in quotes, will not be tolerated in Seminole County. Anybody making these threats is subject to arrest, immediately upon stepping into this county. What was their problem? I mean, as a prosecutor, is that something that you would advocate, that if somebody was making threats, putting up posters, billboards, dead or alive, we want this guy, wouldn't you go out and have them arrested right away?
Well, first off, you got to understand that this is happening on a national stage. It's not happening there in their county. So you have a hard time controlling what's happening across the national stage.
But if any of those people come into your county, can't you? I mean, you can issue a statement saying the minute you step foot in this county, you will be arrested.
Well, you can, but you are the offense that they have committed. They committed somewhere else, and so you can't really arrest them in that county for an offense that happened somewhere else. You're going to have to wait for them to commit an offense in your county. And that's what you're going to run into. And when you do that kind of thing, it looks like you're defending Zimmerman, and it looks like you're throwing gas on the fire.
Really?
Yeah.
See, to me, it would look more like you're standing up for the rule of law.
And that's what we ought to be able to do, and that's what we need to be looking for here, is the rule of law.
It's the only thing we have that separates us from barbarism.
Absolutely. And that's what trying something in the court of public opinion takes away from us. It steals from us all the rules that we have in a court of law.
Yeah. What's that old saying, Dennis, that when the facts are on your side, you pound the facts, and when the facts are against you, you pound the table?
That's right. When you got the facts, you pound the facts. When you've got the law, you pound the law. And when you've got neither, you pound the table.
I think we're going to see a lot of table pounding in this case.
I think you're right.
Dennis Fuller, I want to thank you so much for joining us. As it continues on, will you be able to come on again and give us your thoughts on this case?
Absolutely. Just let me know.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dennis.
You're welcome.